elite gymnasts like Simone Biles are able to spin, flip, and twist without getting dizzy. The maneuvers they're able to do are incredible, but if I just pick up my kid once and spin him around, I'm left staggering for the next 30 seconds. So how are they able to stay oriented and balanced without getting dizziness? Now, we first have to look at the anatomy of the vestibular system. Now, the vestibular system is within your inner ear, about the size of your thumbnail, and it has these kind of central chambers within and these canals that are filled with fluid. Now, these fluid in the canals will move and bend these hair follicles to send signals to the brain telling you where you are in space. Now, let's take the example of if you're spinning around. So if you're spinning, this fluid is going to start to catch up with your movement. It's going to start to bend those hair follicles and send a signal to your brain that you're spinning. Now, let's say you stop spinning. There's a little bit of slight inertia where the fluid keeps and continues to move, sending a signal to your brain that you're still spinning when your eyes say, hey, I'm stopped. And that mismatch is what causes that dizziness that we typically occur or experience. So why doesn't this happen to gymnasts? So there's a few reasons why. And the reason isn't because the physics of Simone Biles' inner ear are different than yours. The reasons are from a few different adaptations that have occurred from intense years of training in gymnastics. So the first one let's look at is the vestibular ocular reflex. This is a reflex of how the inner ear sends this signal to the eyes to keep your eyes on a target. Now, this is really important for balance. Simone's going to be using this when she's balancing on the beam. And what happens is when you move your head quickly, this reflex sends a signal to your eyes to go the opposite direction. Now, this is important to be able to keep your eyes on target. Now, if you've ever experienced vertigo from, let's say, vestibular neuritis, that's a weakened nerve in the inner ear, typically from inflammation, you're going to experience a disruption to this reflex, and it's going to cause a lot of dizziness, and it's going to cause a lot of balance issues as well. So that's super important. But what's really interesting is that when this VOR, this reflex, isn't occurring when you're spinning or flipping in gymnastics, what happens is that Simone and elite gymnasts are able to suppress this reflex. Now, the brain is able to see when they're going to spin and flip, suppresses this reflex so that the eyes don't move the opposite direction of the head in these quick rotations. What's actually happening is that the eyes are moving with the body in these rotations, which is going to be the opposite of what you and I might be doing on a day-to-day basis, as in what you and I might be experiencing on a day-to-day basis, what our vestibular ocular reflex is going to be doing. Now, she has learned this. This is not innate. She's learned this through practice and training. Now, this is going to be important because she needs to be able to spin, flip, and visually look at where she's going to land. So this is going to be super important that her eyes aren't moving in the opposite direction of her head when she's trying to visually fixate on a point to find her landing spot, and that helps her stay oriented and balanced. So we have this VOR suppression that's occurring, this learned adaptation in the brain. And that's going to help her stay oriented and balanced and determine where she is in space. So not only do we have this kind of overriding, the brain's overriding this reflex that she has, you also have the sensory reweighting. Now, the vestibular system, as we talked about, has that kind of fluid-filled canals that are going to have a bit of inertia. So there's going to be a little bit of a speed up and slow down of those signals that are getting sent to the brain. But what happens is that these complex rotations and flips that she's doing can send kind of this really a lot of information to the brain to get processed. And so for you and I, it'd be too much. Our brain isn't that efficient in processing because we haven't been training and practicing for years to learn these maneuvers. But for her, she's able to have this VR suppression as well, switch from utilizing her inner ear system to maybe putting more weight on her visual cues, or what we call proprioception. So your proprioception is a part of your somatosensory system, and proprioception is essentially your body's ability to tell you where you are in space. So if you are to take your, close your eyes and you are to take your elbow and straighten it out or bend it, I'm sure you could tell whether or not your elbow is bent or straight just by feeling it, right? That's proprioception. You're not looking at your elbow to see where it is in space. You can tell if it's bent because of the signals that your muscles and joint are sending you. So she has attuned this sensory system to be very fine and detailed in telling her where she is in space. So perhaps it's kind of like a sixth sense, right? That's kind of what you can think of it as. She's utilizing this proprioception, these information from her muscles and joints of where she is in space, as well as visual cues when she's spinning and flipping to determine where she's going to land. Now, it's not going to work with just that alone. She also there's been MRIs done to look at how gray matter changes in the brain have increased in areas that deal with spatial orientation and coordination. Now, gray matter is the supportive cells and the cell bodies and in the brain, rather than the axons, the cell axons themselves. And so this is where all the processing is being done within the brain. And so they're seeing a more dense gray matter areas in these elite gymnast brains versus people who are not elite gymnasts. And that's helping them process all this information more efficiently. And so that increased gray matter, the sensory reweighting, the suppression of the vestibular ocular reflex, and throughout all this intensive training, her brain is essentially getting a copy of what she should expect to feel when she's doing all these rotations and spins. So this is kind of a pre-programmed motor plan, right? So she has practiced these spins and flips so often that she knows what it should feel like. Her brain knows what it should feel like and can compare that in real time to what she is currently experiencing, allowing her to make these really quick adjustments. Now, all of these things together, I know I'm sure I didn't cover everything, but all these together help her process all this information more quickly and more efficiently to keep her oriented and balanced. So while gymnasts experience the same inner ear dynamics that we do, their brains have become exceptional at processing and adapting to this information. So it's not that they don't receive dizzying signals or mismatched signals between their inner ear, their eyes, their proprioception, or what they're feeling. It's that their brains have learned to handle these signals in remarkable ways. And now, I would be interested to see if anybody has experience in gymnastics or has been coached or is a coach of gymnastics. What are the cues? How are you teaching these gymnasts to learn these kind of skills? I'd be interested in how the visual cue is being taught. To prevent dizziness, to stay oriented, to stay balanced. Please leave a comment below if you have any experience with this. I thought this was incredibly interesting just to see the adaptations that occur for elite gymnasts. And if you have any questions, leave those in comments below too. Thanks for watching.